What is up, guys? Teddy Cornwall here. Welcome to the Underdog Talk. And there's something about the underdog, but today you see him, the man some call, well, we'll get into his nickname later. We're just going to say it, a defensive special teams juggernaut, Mr. Nate Ebner. How you doing today, man? How's 2025 treating you? How's life going so far, man?
Life's good, man. I mean, I got a little 9-month-old baby running around, so that's been a change of pace. But no, outside of that, enjoying being retired from the game, not having to hit people every day. So that's been nice. I guess I kind of missed that too. But yeah, no, life is good. I can't complain. The holidays were good and ready for the new year.
And the nickname that they called you was Leonidas. And that might be the toughest name in all of sports. Underdog Talk, find a name that is tougher than that, and I will pay you $100. And obviously, that is because defensive coordinator Paul Haynes called you that, right?
Yeah, I mean, the movie 300 came out when I was at Ohio State, so I think everyone just thought I looked like Leonidas, so they called me that. But I will say, when I got to the NFL, I grew up in a junkyard, and my NFL teammates, Devin McCourty, Logan Ryan, they called me Junkyard Dog, and I think that might go a little harder, but that's my opinion.
Well, I think you have two hard nicknames, and that is a pretty lucky thing. Some people do not have the cool nicknames these days, Nate. And obviously, I want to take it back. Um, take us back to the early days. What was life like growing up? Obviously, your story fascinates me. As football was never your first, I guess we'll say, love, or rugby was the thing you were standing out. And obviously, again, for those who don't know, Nate didn't do football in high school. And then obviously you'll talk about how in college you didn't even play football until your junior year, which is insane to me, especially at the prestigious Ohio State. But what was life like growing up, and what was the childhood like?
Yeah, I had a very unique upbringing. I mean, I was raised in a junkyard, like I mentioned, very blue collar, hard manual labor every day. But also had a very unique father figure. Um, we'd work at the junkyard all day, and then we'd go lift weights, old school style, heavy weights. Go heavy or die is what he would say. So I was just always in that environment. Played a lot of sports growing up. Played really everything you could think of. Pee wee football. I was playing soccer. I was playing basketball. I was on travel baseball teams. Gravitated towards squash a lot at a younger age, but when I got to about you know 15 or 16, I kind of narrowed my focus towards rugby. And rugby was one of those unique sports that my dad introduced me to. He was a big rugby guy. And, my dad was kind of like a whatever he's doing, I'm doing type of deal. And, we were very tight. But he introduced me to rugby. That was kind of our thing together. And I played a lot of that growing up, but I got pretty good. I was obviously fairly athletic, and then I had the IQ for that game because I grew up playing it. I found myself as one of the better players very quickly at a young age. So I focused solely on rugby at age 16. I played a little basketball in high school, but mainly focused on rugby. Didn't play high school football. Um, Found myself on the national team. Went to 3 junior World Cups. The under 19s, went to Dubai in 2006, Ireland in 2007, and Wales in 2008, and then found myself at Ohio State, and yeah, then went on to walk onto the football team. If you want me to dive into that story, I would love to, but I don't want to take up too much of your time.
I think you have so much to. I mean, you have such a story, and obviously your dad went to Minnesota to play rugby, right?
Yeah.
And was rugby something that you always thought you would go pro in as a teen growing up, Nate, or was
Yeah,
that
I mean, I think very quickly I realized I was probably one of the better rugby players in our country at a young age, and I had aspirations to be a professional athlete. Um, Especially when you look at the sports environment in the United States and how big sports are in this country, it's hard not to want to be a professional athlete. But I also found myself kind of, at a dead end. I don't want to say dead end, but I would have had to have gone overseas to be a professional. I didn't really want to do that. And I think a mix of me being done playing junior World Cup rugby against the best in the world, then coming back to Ohio State playing kind of club rugby against guys that don't really play a lot. They want to party more than they want to play. And, um, those aspirations to be pro, but knowing I'd have to go overseas, that's kind of the perfect storm that got me to want to look towards football. I mean, my senior year in high school, I thought about going out for the football team, but I kind of just wanted to play just to play. But as I got into college, went to those World Cups, I started to realize I want to be a professional athlete. And a bit audacious of me, but I figured there's no better place to start if I want to be a football player than Ohio State. So I actually had a conversation with my dad about that. That was a hard conversation. He introduced me to the game of rugby. It was like, my first love. And here I am about to tell him, I don't want to play rugby anymore, to go chase this wild dream of playing football, which I haven't done since I was in like seventh grade. And, but right away we had that conversation. He was very receptive. He was, like, if you're going to do this, you need to do it all in with everything you have. Don't play rugby on the side. And that was really reassuring. But I will say that was actually the last conversation I had with him. The next day, he was murdered at the junkyard, and found myself kind of in a funk. But yeah, I had luckily I had a good mother figure as well. She was a huge part of pulling me out of a very bad place and telling me, Nate, you need to live a life you'd be proud of. You need to, you know, carry on and not let this ruin your life. And that was kind of the moment for me that, I switched my attitude from one of kind of being angry and, you know, uh, wanting to, redeem my father to, one of being grateful and thankful for the man that I had in my life and the father figure, the parents that I had, and just grateful that I had the man that I did for 19 years. So I went on with it, walked on to the football team, and as a man on a mission, I wanted to make it at Ohio State so I could get a shot at the NFL, and I was extremely serious and found a way to make it work. But I only had a couple years of eligibility, so I had to get on the field as quickly as possible, and the fastest way to do that was through special teams. So, not knowing anything about football, that was kind of what I gravitated towards. And that's what kind of carried me or at least got my foot in the door with the NFL.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, what a story. And I know your dad's watching over you and proud of the man you become, and, so much stuff to break down. And real quick, who do you got tonight? Obviously, tonight we do have your team versus Texas, and I gotta know, Nate, who do you got going today? And I don't even know why I'm asking that.
Yeah, I don't know that I need to answer that. My
Yeah, that's
brother
a
actually
silly
went
question.
to my
That's a
brother
silly.
actually went to Texas.
Okay.
So, we have a little bet going, but if Ohio State plays anything like they have the last couple games,
Lights
they're
out.
gonna be hard to contend with. I mean, I've watched a lot of football, man. Those last two games I've never seen a college football team look that good, maybe ever. They are firing on all cylinders, and they just hopefully can continue with the momentum that they've built. I know Texas is going to show up, and it's going to be a tough game. And at this stage, at this level, with this much on the line, it's never easy. So if they go in there thinking they're just going to walk all over them, they're going to have a rude awakening. But I think Coach Day has done a great job, and I'm excited to watch them beat up on the Longhorns. Hopefully.
And when you were in Ohio State, was it Urban Myers?
No, I was with Jim Tressel.
Okay. Okay. And
Urban came in right at my senior year when we had the tattoo gate thing at that you see what's going on with NIL right now, and we got in trouble because a couple guys got some tattoos.
and I don't know if you've ever heard this, Nate. Do you know what Pro Football Weekly said about you in college? You ever hear the quote? They said you were a player who kind of races down the field like a bat out of hell and hunts returners like a heat-seeking missile. You've heard that, right? That they said that about you.
Yeah, probably. I didn't keep it in my notebook, but I think I remember that.
I mean, if someone said that about me, I'd be I'd be energized for the rest of my life. Now, you talked about switching from rugby to football. What did you learn about yourself in that switch as a person and ultimately created you into that football player you became?
Well, that original switch from rugby to football was, um, a bit audacious in my eyes, but I believed in myself, and that belief is what propelled me. But I will say that that was one of the more humbling experiences I've had in my athletic career because, as athletic as I may have been, you need to know what's going on in these sports, especially at the highest level. The IQ difference is what separates people. It's not, everybody's fast and strong and explosive. It's about how you see the game and how you react, and those are the difference makers at a level like that at an Ohio State or in the NFL. So, like I said, it was humbling. I had to learn, and I had to learn quickly. And for me, it was about just getting on that bus, making the team, and going to the away games. So that's what they say: get on the bus, because if they're taking you to away games, you're obviously a part of the team. It's one thing in college, the home games, everybody stands on the sidelines, but I wanted to make that bus. And from my first game, I got in on some kickoffs, and that's kind of what solidified my role. And I just kind of built on that over the next couple of years. And I'm a little biased, but that senior year, I felt I probably should have been a starter on defense. But I think I was working against a little more than um, just the players. It's very political when you're talking about 5-star recruits, and then here comes a walk on that we didn't expect. I thought the NFL was actually less, political than Ohio State was. But, anyways, I'm very grateful for it. It got me where I needed to be, and like I said, though, I had to learn a lot. I mean, football is like the most complex sport there is, and it's not even close. Um, so that was a tough transition, but I think the biggest growth I had was probably my rookie year in the NFL with Bill Belichick and Matt Patricia and guys like that, Brian Flores. Those guys really helped me understand the game. Scott O'Brien and the kicking game, like that's what really kept me around. And once I understood the game, that's what allowed me to have a 10-year NFL career. It wasn't, everybody's a freak in the
Yeah,
NFL. Don't get me wrong, there's a couple super freaks, but the thing that makes people play a long time at that level is mental. It's all mental. So I was lucky to have those coaches and those men in my life, Mr. Kraft. I was lucky to have Jim Trestles. I was lucky to have the father that I had. I was very, I don't like to talk about luck a lot, but when it comes to the men that were placed in my life, I was very fortunate. I mean, a lot of guys end up on teams with bad coaches or bad organizations, and I had the best of the best that were put in front of me every day for 15 years, and before that with my father. So very lucky in that regard. But yeah, it was a great journey.
do you think being an underdog, being that walk on Ohio State, ultimately gave you the power to be the star you became, and then ultimately go to the NFL? Did that kind of motivate you, Nate?
Uh, you know, I like to think I was different than normal walk on kids. Like the walk on trial was an insane process. You've got like 60, 70 kids that are half of them are wearing their Ohio State jersey, like just wanting to say like they played. And it was different for me, but at the end of the day, I was a walk on. And yeah, I mean, I have to admit that probably was just more fuel to the fire. I think I was so purpose driven at the beginning with trying to fulfill what my dad and I last spoke about, which was trying to get to the NFL and making it at Ohio State, that uh, I was willing to die every day when I walked in that building, and I was willing to go places most guys weren't. Um, but I would add that being looked at as just a walk on or fodder or something like that, like yeah, that also that was just more fuel to the fire for sure.
Yeah. Would you, change anything in retrospect now, going to Ohio State, or do you think everything happened for a reason? You are where you are now.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't change. I almost left my senior year to go to a different school because I knew I wasn't going to get to play as much as I felt I should have. But I had some conversations with some people, and the power of being at an Ohio State and turning the film on, and even though it's a special teams play, saying like, look at this dude just running faster, making all the tackles at an Ohio State, being dominant. That that had some weight. So I ended up staying. But yeah, I really wouldn't change anything. I mean, obviously it worked out for me, so I don't think I'd change a whole lot. I think the only issue I had with my career was special teams is what kind of got me into the NFL, and then I was just kind of seen as a special teams guy. And I think by my second or third year in the NFL, like I really understood how to play safety, and that's what kept me, you know, in New England for so long and playing in the NFL for so long is because I had to play a lot of safety. But I felt like, had I come in as a safety beforehand, I might have had a better given more opportunity to, actually play a little more defense. But again, I mean, I'm very grateful for the career that I had. And, I'm not somebody who looks back on life and thinks about, what I regret. It is what it is. And I did what I did in the moment, and I've always given my best. And, that's something I say about, everything I did in my life, whether it be walking onto the football team at Ohio State or going to the Olympics in 2016 and leaving football. Like, I didn't want to leave any doubt. I didn't want to leave any regret in my life that I had to live with every night and wondering what that would have been like had I tried. So I just do it and I try. And if it works, it does. And if it doesn't, look, there's a lot of good athletes out there. And if it wasn't meant to be, it wasn't meant to be. It wasn't for lack of effort. That's what I say. And at least I tried. So that's kind of how I live my life. And yeah, I'm grateful for everything. And I can't say that I regret too much.
That's a powerful mindset. Now, what were the emotions of hearing your name being drafted into the National Football League? Obviously, something that a very personal thing with your father, and something that you were working your butt off for. What was that all like? Actually being drafted to the NFL?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think being drafted was like even a goal. It wasn't even on my radar. I just wanted to make it. I wanted an opportunity. I didn't ever think I would get drafted, but I had like a really good pro day. Obviously, my senior year, I did really well. My tape was really good. Mike Vrabel was a coach, assistant coach at Ohio State. That helped. Um, so he saw what type of dude I was, and I just think ultimately to get drafted was a little bit of affirmation that all my hard work is paying off. It was kind of something I didn't expect. It was kind of surreal in a way, but I was a late round draft pick. I didn't really care. I was just glad I went to an organization like New England, and I enjoyed that, but it didn't mean a whole lot. At the end of the day, once you got there, Bill didn't care if you were first rounder or undrafted. I mean, you got to go put the work in. And, I was just thankful that I knew I was for sure going to get a legitimate opportunity. That was the biggest piece of getting drafted, was that, it's not just like they're bringing me in for whatever. They're actually like desire to have me, and I'll get a real opportunity.
And whether that was luck or fate, whatever you want to call it, you go to a pretty damn good football team, Nate. And
Yeah.
obviously, it might be a simple question for you. I mean, is that the most dominant football team in history when you were with those New England Patriots for those three Super Bowls? I mean, eh,
Yeah, I
how
mean, the Kansas City Chiefs look pretty darn good right now, but um, yeah, I mean, I think you got to look at the body of work over, that period of time. It was a very dominant team. I think there's only, they're definitely in the conversation for, most dominant teams. I think Kansas City's in there as well, but they're definitely on the short list for that conversation. And as far as dynasties go, I don't think there's ever been a franchise that's done anything like that, and maybe will ever do it. I mean, like I said, we'll see what Kansas City does, but they're about halfway there. But yeah, it was. I was very fortunate to end up at a place like that.
And I asked you what the emotions of getting drafted were. What were the emotions of winning the Super Bowl 3 times? Which, I mean, most people in the world cannot say they even won one. What was that
Yeah,
like?
I mean, the first one was like, wow, like I just, like 5 or 6 years prior, I was playing rugby in a cornfield out in the Midwest somewhere, and just again, I go back to the word affirmation that like the choice to back myself and go hard and see what happens. It was all worth it, and all the work that I put in, and I'm there, and if my dad had gotten to see me in that moment, that would have been amazing. I think when I set out to make it to the NFL, it wasn't just like I want to get to the league and like, yeah, I made it. Like I wanted to actually have like a real career that I can look back and say, like, I actually like played in the NFL. A lot of people say they do, but it's a different story when you have a lengthy career. You go to Super Bowls, you play for a decade. It's part of who you are. And I think that again, just making it to the Super Bowl is just affirmation of all that hard work, and then to be fortunate enough to continue to go back to multiple and be an integral part of that team that won so many. I got friendships for a lifetime, and I was a part of greatness, and it's given me a perspective on the difference between why we as an organization were so successful and why other businesses or organizations don't have success. And it's very clear to me, and it starts with culture most of the time. That's the bottom line. And we had a great one. So yeah, it was just great years.
Has your affirmation changed post football, or has it still always been the same affirmation for you?
um I don't think it's changed. I think it's the affirmation and the fact and that when you back yourself and you put everything into everything you have, you sacrifice whatever it takes to get what you want, and you go to sleep every night knowing you did everything you could. That process and that mindset is what leads to success. And that's shown me that, whether it be through my NFL career or even when I went to the Olympics in 2016, if you give everything you have to something, most of the time it will work out. And if it doesn't, at least you can sleep at night knowing you couldn't have done anything differently. And, that mindset is the affirming piece to it all, that it's like, it doesn't matter whether it's sports or what in life. That commitment to go after something you want, when you take it to an extreme level, you can have it. And I've my life and story has been proof of that. And that's just that's I know nothing else because of those experiences, and I really believe that is the case.
What would your biggest tip be for someone who's looking to get into football? And I ask that because you literally got into football at a late stage and made it to the highest league. What would your biggest tip after everything you've seen be to get into the National Football League?
Well, it depends on where you are. Are we talking about a 12-year-old? Are we talking about a kid in college or high school? I mean,
Mostly a high schooler who's
you
on the
know,
varsity
well,
team.
I think at the end of the day, um, they can either, you know, I think everybody's path is different. I think if you can go to a small school and start and get some experience, I can't speak to that because I didn't do that, but I think that would have been really beneficial for me. But if you can go to a school like Ohio State, um, a Georgia and Alabama, something like that, like, and you can make yourself be known, you're going to have just as much opportunity there. It's extremely competitive, but at the end of the day, whether you're at an Ohio State or you're at a Division III school, like you just need to put the best version of yourself out there every day on tape, every day in the weight room, every day in meetings, and every process that it takes. You need to be the best version of yourself, and you need to stack those days up over time, and then you'll be in a totally different place down the line. But it's not just going to happen because you think about it or you want it. It's going to happen because of what you do every day. And how you get there, we all have a bunch of different pathways, but the thing I would say we all have in common is that daily grind and focus and obsession with trying to get better, and obsession with trying to do as much as you can to get what you want, and spilling it every day, whether people are watching or not. It doesn't matter. If you really want this for yourself, it doesn't matter if it's in front of fans or if you're in a room by yourself. You got to set a standard for yourself, and you got to meet it every day, and you got to push that bar higher and higher and higher. And that's what will make you a great person, but a great player, great athlete, whatever it is, great person as well. At the end of the day, it's just how hard you're willing to work and how consistent you are in that effort. That's really what I will focus on. The cards will fall where they fall, but I've seen people from D3 schools play for 10 years, and people go to Ohio State and play for, if you want to find an excuse of why it didn't work, you'll find it. And if you want to not take no for an answer, you'll find a way to make it work. It's just how bad do you want to work every day?
It comes down to, if you go to sleep at night knowing you gave everything, like you mentioned, Nate, I think you can rest your laurels on that. I think that's a powerful statement right there. And I like to end the podcast. This is the Underdog podcast. What has been your biggest underdog moment in your life, where everything was kind of stacked against you, and you've already kind of mentioned a few, but you rose, you shone, and you did what people thought you couldn't do?
I mean, I definitely think it was either just making it to the football team at Ohio State, but I mean, on an even higher level, I would probably say the Olympics.
Oh.
I mean, I hadn't played rugby for 6 years, and we're talking about an international level, a game that's so fast paced. There's been a lot of NFL guys try to come over and play, and I only had 6 months to really transition back, and like I said, I hadn't played for quite a while. No one thought I would make that team. And then, once I got going, and that belief in myself and the resilience to just fight every day and believe that I will get there. I had some serious growth. It didn't happen when I first went out there, man. I was out of shape. I was rusty. I was robotic. It was a daily process every day of trying to push that needle, push that standard higher and higher, get my fitness better, get my skills better, every day, and believe that I'll end up where I need to be. And I did. That was making that Olympic team of a 12-man roster that the best, the United States has to offer in 6 months. That was probably my biggest underdog moment. And I think my dad would have enjoyed that one the most.
Yeah, I think he would have been too. And man, what a story. And I mean, if you want it, go get it. I think that's the message of this podcast, Nate. Now, before we go, the floor is yours. I know you're working on some big things with rugby yourself. And, if you want to plug any of those, where can we find, your social medias? I know you have a book as well. Yeah. What's that all like?
Yeah, it's called Finish Strong, A Father's Code and a Son's Path. You can find it on Amazon. Anywhere, just type it in the Google machine. It'll pop up. But yeah, it's kind of like my take on my journey. The impact that parents have in their children's lives, and being present in the moment. And like you just said, fighting every day for what you want. If you want to go get it. It's really takes you through that whole process. I would say I'll just leave it at that. And if you're a rugby fan and you want to, catch a game, come check out the MLR, Major League Rugby. But yeah, man, I
Yeah,
appreciate you having me and let me share a little bit of my story.
and it was powerful, man. It was really powerful. And first 3 people to buy the book, send me a screenshot. We'll get you a special thing out to you. But everyone, Nate's stuff will be in the bio. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment on this video. Until next time, the underdog and the beast out.